commanded the stars, giving life its fullest brilliance. The Elden Ring. Oh, Elden Ring.
Hello, I am Sean of the Lore Hunter, and this is episode 2 of my Elden Ring So Far series, in which I discuss everything we know about the upcoming action RPG, Elden Ring. This video will focus on what we've learned about the gameplay and mechanics so far. If you're interested in learning more about the story and world of Elden Ring, please check out episode 1 of this series, linked in the top right corner of the screen. Okay, let's jump right in. In the development section of this video, I want to talk a bit about the developer, Fromsoftware. I want to contextualize the development of Elden Ring within Fromsoftware's catalog and examine where FromSoft is coming from creatively as a means to forecast where they are going with Elden Ring. If you're looking for information about Martin's collaboration with FromSoft for Elden Ring, check out that link I just mentioned. Now let's travel back in time to the Age of Ancients. Fromsoftware has been making games since 1994, when they released the first-person RPG King's Field, the spiritual predecessor to the Souls games. From there, FromSoft developed what can only be described as an ass-ton of games, 67 titles in 25 years. In 2004 and 2006, they released 6 titles each year. FromSoft developed action games, RPGs, mech games, adventure games, survival horror games, and everything in between. FromSoft saw moderate success with their titles, creating beloved series with the King's Field and Armored Core games. But the release of Demon's Souls in 2009 marked the beginning of FromSoft's Age of Fire. The Souls games, and Bloodborne, released between 2009 and 2016. They were wildly successful, ranking among the most critically acclaimed games of the last decade. Despite the continued success of the series, Dark Souls 3, released in 2016, marked the last Souls game, at least for now. Hidetaka Miyazaki, president of FromSoftware and the director of Dark Souls, explained that it was never our real motive for FromSoftware to be the Dark Souls only company. He added that the reason why he's no longer going to do Dark Souls is that he doesn't think he can add more to it. The end of the Dark Souls games marked a turning point for FromSoftware. In an E3 2018 interview, Miyazaki explained that, as we were starting to wrap up Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3, we were obviously looking at what might come next, but at the same time, we were looking at what we'd done in the past. Miyazaki stated to Famitsu in 2014 that, "I feel that FromSoftware's title lineup will need a little more variation. We have dark fantasies like Dark Souls, of course, but I'd also like for us to make more mech games like Armored Core, or Asian-style titles like Tenchu or Otogi Myth of Demons. FromSoftware used to have a lot more rather quirky titles." FromSoftware wanted to get out of Dark Souls' shadow and get a little introspective. I talk about it in greater detail in this other video linked in the top right, but a lot of what people love about Dark Souls' design, such as the fractured storytelling, has been part of FromSoftware's design philosophy since long before Dark Souls. FromSoft could have continued to print money and create more Dark Souls games, but I think they wanted to get back to their core design philosophy in a way that was not restrained by the bounds of the Souls games. Out of this creative homecoming, FromSoftware created the adventure game Deracine, released in November 2018, and the action game Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, released in March of 2019. These titles were rooted in older IPs and stepped out of the action RPG genre that the studio worked within during the last decade. This brings us to Elden Ring, a return to the dark fantasy action RPG. Development of Elden Ring began in early 2017, and Miyazaki told Xbox News that, "We wanted to create a new dark fantasy action RPG full of the things that we weren't able to do in the Dark Souls series." I see Elden Ring very much as FromSoftware continuing to push beyond Dark Souls. Dark fantasy action RPGs have been a staple of FromSoft's output since the beginning. Creating a title that occupies the same space as Dark Souls, but goes beyond the scope of what they were able to do with the series, sounds to me like they had ideas they were unable to implement within the bounds of Dark Souls. Now that they are not constrained by the series, they are able to implement them. We've seen from the cut content videos produced by Lance McDonald that Dark Souls 3 left quite a few mechanics on the cutting room floor. While this is speculative, perhaps Elden Ring will have room for some of those cut mechanics. From the Miyazaki interviews following E3, we learned that the scope of Elden Ring is bigger and that the game will be more open than anything FromSoft has produced before. Ezra Crabb of IGN explained that Miyazaki gave 3 reasons to why he wanted to introduce this new type of environment: showing the game's world and lore on a grander scale, adding more freedom and depth to exploration, and creating more variation to battles. That's right, FromSoft is creating their version of an open world game. Miyazaki told IGN that, while the narrow and complex dungeons of our previous games were indeed interconnected, Elden Ring's environments will be much more open and vast. The more extensive world will form the base of Elden Ring's gameplay, and its mechanics are designed with that type of environment in mind. Miyazaki also told IGN that the gameplay is heavily based on Dark Souls, but that with a larger world, new systems and action mechanics inevitably become necessary. In that sense, I think Elden Ring is a more natural evolution of Dark Souls. So it seems to me that the basis for the gameplay and mechanics of Elden Ring is, what if we made Dark Souls, but put it in a big-ass world? Well, first and foremost, you'd need a ride. Miyazaki told IGN that the player will be able to traverse through the world on a horse and can find enemies while riding it. So you'll explore the world with your trusted steed and smash some heads while doing it. If horseback combat is part of the additional variation to battles, then I will be very curious to see footage of this. I've never really clicked with horseback combat in a game, but maybe Elden Ring can shatter this record. Exploration has always been a huge draw of the Soulsborne games to me, taking in the gorgeous views and learning about the world through carefully placed items engraved with evocative details. Exploration is also one of the hallmarks of an open world game, scouring the world in search of towns and dungeons and finding yourself in unexpected situations. So when Miyazaki says they're adding more freedom and depth to exploration, that's a tall order to fill. With a customizable character and a wide variety of weapons, magic, and ways to engage enemies, I'm hopeful that exploration will be rewarded with items to build out your character and learn more about the world. Miyazaki said in a quote that I honestly feel was crafted to ease my anxious soul, that we are known for letting the player explore the game's lore through fragments of environmental storytelling, and this time around Martin's story is what you will be trying to unravel. In addition to chasing shinies, a big part of open world games is getting to know the locals, both friends and foes. IGN wrote that, according to Miyazaki, there will be no towns or cityscapes with NPCs to interact with in Elden Ring, but you can expect village ruins in a similar vein to his other titles. This quote has been the basis for my least favorite brand of pre-release discussion, speculative worry, in which people have interpreted this to mean that there will be no NPCs in Elden Ring. That is quite frankly silly. What I think can be gleaned from these words are that the world of Elden Ring is in ruins, much like Lordran or Lothric, and to not expect bustling towns or cities like you find in The Witcher 3 or Skyrim. There will of course be NPCs, and I can even say with some confidence that they will have obscure questlines and will laugh creepily. Also similar to the worlds of Dark Souls, Miyazaki described Elden Ring's world as full of danger and threats, as well as many areas ripe for exploration. Among those areas, you will also find intricately designed, multi-layered castles and such. So it sounds like the complex level design of the Souls games will exist, but in a limited fashion as dungeons. And that is honestly all we know officially about the gameplay and mechanics. While Miyazaki has said some very exciting comments about doing things that they weren't able to with Dark Souls and how this is the largest volume game they've ever produced, we haven't seen or heard any concrete information about what this might entail. FromSoft has never let me down, and I'm very excited about what I've heard, but I am setting my expectations low until we get more official information. Now let's talk about some unofficial information. In this video, I'll talk about two common topics of speculation about the gameplay and mechanics of Elden Ring. The first is, will there be Chalice dungeons in Elden Ring? Chalice dungeons are procedurally generated underground labyrinths players could explore in Bloodborne for unique items and some extra lore. The real answer is, we don't know. However, in Omnipotent's Reset Era post discussed in episode 1, he wrote, "You'll have so much to dig into and search for. There's plenty of unearthed knowledge. Interconnected design is larger and deeper than ever, and archaeologists and spelunkers might just be in for their biggest playground yet." Couple this with Miyazaki discussing the depth and freedom of exploration, and, well, you have nothing really. But with the Omnipotent rumor being somewhat plausible and containing a lot of underground exploration imagery, it's surprisingly not the most outlandish theory, if very speculative, that there could be Chalice dungeons of some kind in Elden Ring. The second topic is, will Elden Ring borrow combat mechanics from Sekiro? Once again, the real answer is, we don't know. The only official statement regarding Elden Ring and Sekiro was in response to the question of what genre Elden Ring is, to which Miyazaki responded, "It is a third-person action RPG. Unlike Sekiro, which has a heavy focus on action, Elden Ring puts more focus on RPG elements. Of course, we are not shying away from the fun of responsive melee-based combat, and these elements will be present as well." Miyazaki is saying that Elden Ring is less of an action game and more of an RPG, but that the responsive melee combat that their games are known for is still present. This is reinforced by another quote from Miyazaki which states that the gameplay is heavily based on Dark Souls, which is also an action RPG. So I don't think there's any indication that Elden Ring is borrowing combat mechanics from Sekiro. During the development of Sekiro, Miyazaki said that the right-hand katana is fixed. That will be your primary weapon for the whole game. This will allow us to deeply explore what it means to master that katana as your single main weapon. Sekiro is about a focused, deep experience in which you embody the role of a shinobi. Elden Ring aims to offer even more variety in the ways players overcome challenges than even Dark Souls. But that doesn't mean that there can't be any trace of Sekiro in Elden Ring. Sekiro began development a year before Elden Ring, and there's always the chance that some of the lessons learned during the development of Sekiro could be incorporated into Elden Ring. But I would expect the foundation of the combat to be more akin to Dark Souls. And that is what we know about the gameplay and mechanics of Elden Ring so far. This wraps up the information we got following E3. So I don't have any more Elden Ring videos in the works right now, but with Gamescom and TGS around the corner, perhaps we will get a new trailer or interview to discuss. If you enjoyed this video, or are just repeatedly watching Elden Ring videos until more information comes out, please consider subscribing and dinging so that you'll be informed when my next video does drop. Thanks for watching.